We're at the local animal shelter, and today we're going to talk about 5 things that I think you need to know before adopting your next family member. Today we're talking about 5 things to help you prepare for adopting and bringing home a new furry family member. Often I talk to my clients about what they should look for in adopting a new pet, and I want to share some of that advice with you today so that you can help make the right decision about what type of dog to bring home. But before we get started with that, if you like this kind of video, please let me know by hitting the like button and hit the subscribe and the bell to get notifications when I release more videos just like it. All right, let's get right on to step 1. So step 1 in finding the perfect family member is to do a little bit of homework ahead of time. The best thing to do is not to show up at the shelter expecting to take a dog home the same day. You want to look into different breeds and find out what kind of dog is actually going to be the right fit for your family and for your lifestyle. For example, if you're not a very active family and you have several small kids in the house, that border collie puppy might be really cute, but that could be a recipe for disaster later on down the road based on their instinctual herding desires. So you want to look for something that's really going to match your lifestyle. So do a little bit of breed research ahead of time. If you're interested in a mutt, no problem there. We're just going to look for the right type of mutt that fits your lifestyle as well, based on what the shelter staff can tell you about their personality, and based on if it's with a foster home, what the foster can tell you about their personality. So do your research ahead of time. The other tip that I have for preparing ahead of time is get involved with a staycation program where you can take an animal home for the weekend or for a week at a time, or a foster to adopt program with a local rescue. Not only does that give you the opportunity to figure out if you're actually ready to bring a dog home and have that responsibility for the life of the animal, but it also gives you the idea as to whether the animal that you picked and brought home is the right for you and for your family. All right, let's head on to the shelter and we'll talk about step 2. So the second step in a successful adoption is bringing the whole family and setting the expectation with the entire family that this is not a love at first sight game. Yes, there's going to be lots of cute faces, but remember, we don't want to make that spontaneous decision. So we want to bring everyone in the family that's going to be a part of the decision so they all get to meet the dogs as well. So before you head into the shelter, before you head down the runs to meet everybody, make sure you prepare your family ahead of time that you're going to make a family decision and pick the best dog for everyone involved. Later on, after you've decided on a few different candidates, you can ask the shelter staff or rescue about bringing your own dogs, your other furry family members, if you have other pets in the house, to meet the new potential pet as well. And the one thing I want to mention is keep in mind that this is kind of like buying a new car, right? So you don't usually pick the very first car that you come across and immediately jump in, hand over the cash, and take the keys. You want to look at several different cars and make sure that you meet several different dogs. Look at different options because it might surprise you which one is the right one for you. All right, let's go take a look at the kennel. Here we are at the adoption kennels. One thing to keep in mind if you go to a county shelter or a humane society with a lot of dogs is it's likely to be very, very loud. So chances are you're gonna hear a lot of noise, a lot of super happy, excited dogs that wanna get your attention. So step number 3 is understanding what we're looking for, knowing that this is a high stress environment. This isn't a normal environment. It's a kennel with a high population of dogs, sights, sounds, and smells. So what are some of the behaviors that we're looking for as we meet some of these dogs? As we initially entered the kennel, it was actually relatively calm and quiet. There wasn't a lot of barking or a lot of noise, which is really good. You can see that some of the dogs are engaging. There's some good friendly wags. They're calm, a little bit of lip licking, some anxiety, which is normal in a kennel environment. But overall, the demeanors are fairly friendly, slightly curious, as are most of the dogs that are in this shelter. You can also see that most of these dogs, as we walk through, are pit bull type dogs because that's the heaviest concentration of the population through many shelters, not just in the Southeast, but across the United States. You'll notice that I'm greeting these dogs in a very non-threatening manner, so getting down on their level, just saying hello very calm and quietly. We did block out the audio from this only because it was very loud in the kennel. Again, initially it was quiet, but one of the workers in there dropped a tile and startled one of the dogs that was a little less secure, and that little dog set off an alarm system, and then everybody got going. So from that point on, it was fairly loud. You'll see a good example with this little red dog right here. She's very friendly at first, curious, slow wag, and you'll notice a change in her demeanor where she starts barking. And that's because another dog set off the alarm system. That kind of triggered her anxiety a little bit, but she's still very friendly, she's still inquisitive, and she's just basically responding to her environment. And we have this little guy who's very eager, wants to say hello. He's vocalizing basically out of engagement. So some other things to look for here: curiosity, slow, friendly wag, wants to engage. This little dog in particular is very sweet. Right here you can see just a little bit of frustration. He has some boundary frustration. He definitely wants out, wants to play, wants to engage. But she's getting down low. And these are some of the things that we look for. This puppy has some good confidence to her, and she definitely wants to be a part of what's going on. Over here, you'll notice this small dog, little black, fluffy poodle mix of some sort. Not overly engaged, but fairly confident in her environment. You can see she's up on her bed. She's fairly cozy, just kind of looking around, checking things out. She looks up at the camera and me for a second to see if she wants to engage or not. This would be a really good dog to take out of the kennel to get a better idea of her personality. This little dog is also curious, very calm. You can see some lip licking here, which is a little bit of anxiety, as well as the head turns. If you'll notice, she's kind of vigilant in her environment, so she's nervous, but calm, eager to kind of investigate and say hello. One of the things you'll notice is that I do put my fingers up to the kennel to allow for them to sniff. I want them to get to know me and use one of their senses, which is sniffing and hearing, but you never want to put your fingers through the cage bars. Even when you see a super friendly wag like this one, this little guy here is very excited to say hello. But remember, this is a high stress environment. These dogs are under different conditions than they would typically be outside of the kennel, so you never want to put your fingers directly through the bar. Now this is a pretty good case of a dog that's very skittish and very uncomfortable in this environment. This dog is displaying a lot of cues that it's very friendly and it wants to investigate, but it's letting its fear kind of take over that curiosity to engage. This is a dog you definitely need to get out of the kennel environment to see its personality more out in the open. Definitely would need some confidence building. Would probably do much better in a foster environment. And then we have this little girl here. She's also very confident, very calm, very quiet, curious. And this little terrier, this is a smart little guy. You can tell there's some intelligence in this one. He'd be a great family pet. Good dog to work with. Very friendly, very confident. Nice tail wag. Not hypervigilant, not overly anxious. Puppies are tough. Luckily, they get adopted very quickly, but this little puppy is still in what we call a critical period of development, which means that if something traumatic happens during this period, it could set them up for something later on in life, whether that's good or bad. So luckily, puppies get adopted quick. And then we have an example of a senior dog. If you're looking for a dog that's already trained, that is a little bit more low energy level, a senior dog is a great pick. So this handsome boy here, initially when I first approached him, was kind of cowered over in the corner with his head down. You can see he's opening up a little bit more here, kind of friendly, slowly wagging, kind of calm for the most part. Pretty sweet overall. So we decided to bust him out and get a good idea as to his real personality, which brings us to step number 4. Dogs present very differently in the kennel oftentimes than they do outside of the kennel environment. So it's very important to get them out of that environment to let their personalities shine a bit more. We learned a lot about this dog just in the few minutes that we spent with him outside of the kennel. He was super eager to please, very friendly, and we learned that he was attracted to males more so than females. It's a lot to learn in a short few minutes getting the dogs outside of that high-stress kennel environment. Our next example is this cute little black and white dog, Tippy. She's very playful, happy, energetic, engaging, showing very differently than she did initially when we first saw her in the kennel environment where she was anxious and lip-licking. If you'll recall, she was a bit more tentative. She was still friendly and wanted to engage, but she was hypervigilant and unsure. Whereas once we got her out of this kennel environment, this high stress environment, her personality started to shine. She opened up, she felt free, she could run around, explore, and act like a normal dog for the most part. So again, just stressing that if there's a dog you're particularly interested in, it's very important to get them out of that high stress kennel environment, even if just for a short while, to let their personality really shine so that you can engage with them and see if this might be a good fit for you and for your family as well. Okay, so we've got one more thing to talk about in regard to the 5 things to set yourself up for a successful adoption at the shelter, environment, or rescue. Excuse us. Before we get to that 5th and final thing, please remember that if you like this kind of video, hit that like button for me. Go ahead and hit the subscribe and bell notification so that we can continue to make valuable content like this and keep this channel going. We'd really appreciate it. All right, 5th and final thing. There is such thing as the honeymoon period, and it's really important to know about the honeymoon period because it's kind of like first impressions. When you first meet the dog, their full entire personality hasn't had the time to come out yet because they're still navigating kind of this new area, your new home, all of these new personalities that are there as well. So expect about a 2 to 3 week period for your new dog to get used to you and to get settled in before their full personality really starts to emerge and you can get to know the kind of dog that they really are. So remember to give it a little bit of time. Remember there's that honeymoon period afterwards. Just like when you meet someone for the first time and you want to put your best foot forward and you have to read the room and kind of understand the different personalities, the same goes for your dog. So those are my 5 tips to help you have a very successful matching when it comes to adopting from a shelter or rescue. If you have any other questions about adopting, please feel free to put them in the comments below. And thanks so much for watching.